Hello everybody, Wade McFarland here with Fancy Fox Home Inspection. Today we're going to do a how-to video on how to start up your evaporative cooler for the summertime. I've got everything staged up on the roof. Here in a moment my friend and next door neighbor is going to come over and run the camera for me, and we'll get this going so that you can see how to get your evaporative cooler running for the summer. Hello everybody, we're up here on the roof now. We're getting ready to take this swamp cooler cover off and get everything set up for the summer. And so we'll just start by unbuckling everything. I just like to use a cargo strap. There's some covers that have different tie down systems, but this seems to be the simplest and quickest way to secure your cover for the winter so it doesn't blow around or air blow up underneath inside your house. You got to be careful. These canvas tarps are pretty brittle, these oiled canvas, and they tear pretty easily if they catch on any of the sharp edges. Just as a reminder to everybody, safety first. If you're not comfortable getting up on your roof, you shouldn't do it. Call somebody to do it for you. If you feel comfortable getting up on your roof, then still exercise safety. Wear your gloves, wear your safety shoes or your glasses, whatever you need. This you're just going to pull up a little bit and it pulls out. Sometimes I leave pads in. I put new pads in the fall so I don't have to do it in the spring. This year I didn't do that, so I have to actually change my pads. This swamp cooler is about 4 years old now, and you can see that we are getting some paint failure and rusting. Depending on how bad it is, I'll get my power washer out once I get the pads and clean it off. Sometimes I'll spray some extra paint on there. I'm not really sure that it lengthens the life of your swamp cooler at all. This drip tray, this is where the water comes in on the top and goes through these little holes and runs down the pads. It gets fairly rusty pretty quick. Some models you can replace this, some not. Again, I don't know how worthwhile it is depending on the swamp cooler you have. This is just a standard kind of cheap swamp cooler. It's not high efficiency or anything like that. So I usually don't worry about it too much. As long as the water can get through, you're good. You're gonna still get the cooling you need. If you're really lucky, you might get 6 or 8 years from your swamp cooler before you have to replace it. Just really depends on what you do to it each year. You can see some of the debris and stuff left over from this fall, from last year. So I'm just going to suck up a bunch of that right now. Alright, so we got it vacuumed out good enough for now. Now I'm going to show you how to take the wire pad holders out, and we're going to go back to the fast forward, and I'm going to size the new roll of cooler pad and put them in, and here we go.
Okay, pause.
Okay, so that was fun. Now we got all the new pads in. If you could see in the video, some of these are a little bit rusty. It is getting close to its end of life, but I'm not really going to do anything about it. I'm not that worried about it at this point. You may also be noticing the roof patch up here. At one point in time, I did have a roof leak. And as a home inspector, if I was inspecting your home, I guess for full disclosure, this is my house. And my whole how-to series and my inspection videos are all going to be done in my house. I've lived here about 22 years. I bought this in my mid-20s. So when I didn't know anything to where I know something, there's a lot of things going on with my house. So I don't have to involve a customer or anybody else. I can nitpick everything at my own house and show you what real life people ignore or don't know about, and that's the point, right? So I'll be going through and doing videos of all my systems. So next, probably the roof. I noticed some issues in the utility closet with the expansion tank. So we've got a bunch of stuff to address and fix this summer, and we'll make a video on each one of those systems and see if we can't help out. So what I'm going to do now is put on a couple of these. I'll connect the water line. We'll get it turned on. We'll get it filling up. We'll go back to hyperlapse while we're doing that. I'm also going to check the belt. So this belt, as you can see, is done. I didn't change it last year because I couldn't find the size that fit. I was short for time. I didn't feel like trying to adjust the motor length. And if I do need to adjust this motor slide to get the new belt to fit, I'm probably not going to do that on camera. But basically you just loosen these bolts. There's two on this side, there's a couple on that side, and then there's a track here. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but there's a track right here, and I'll be able to slide it forward if the belt that I have is too small for the position that I'm in. This should have just a tiny bit of play, but it's not like this. maybe a 1/4 inch of leeway or something. This can degrade the efficiency of your swamp cooler. So the belt's too loose, it's not spinning the downdraft. So this is a downdraft swamp cooler. So right now it's this spins, these rotors turn, and it blows air straight down into my ductwork, and I've got 2 vents down inside the house. So right now this motor is not spinning this as efficiently as it could. As a result, I'm going to get less cooling than I should. On the other hand, if your belt's too tight, it's going to put a strain on your motor and shorten your motor life because it's just going to put the extra workload on there. All right, I'm going to start putting things back together. We're going to switch back to hyperlapse, and we'll come back on the other side. Okay, I forgot one little thing before we went to the hyperlapse of doing the belt and the other thing. This is your overflow. This connects into your drain here. So this is your water pan. Your water is going to come out. Your water level is adjusted with this float. So this tray is going to fill up. As the water fills up, this float rises, and there's a little valve here, and the water will shut off. As the water evaporates, the float goes down, and the water will start filling again. And then once the level goes back up, then it will stop again. The other tip I have for you is, if you've driven down the road and you've seen people with big white stains running down their roof, and they have a big box like this, their swamp cooler up on the roof, and for those of you in dry areas and non-humid areas like we are here in Colorado, put a piece of hose, a piece of garden hose or something on your drain and run it down into your gutter. You don't want your swamp cooler to overflow and then just run down your roof, because it's going to, over time, it's going to get calcium buildup, it's going to damage your roof, it could cause a leak, it could weaken your decking if it does start to leak. So you really don't want to do that. This is, and you can go get a cheap hose from Walmart or something, a 25-footer for less than $10, and run it into your gutter, cut it off, and then you don't have to worry about that. All right, I'm not sure if you could see during the hyperlapse, but my bolts are rusted on there. The belt is too small, so I do need to adjust it forward. That's going to take a little more work than I want to make you suffer through while I try to get that straightened out. So we're going to skip right now to the pump. I like to take my pump out over the winter time, put a little WD-40 on the shafts down here, this little impeller. You can just spray a little bit in here, just a couple of drips on top, and then I already tested it when I was down on the ground, and it does spin, so we should be okay. The reason I do that, over the years I've tried different ways to try to keep warm air inside the house, and I used to shrink wrap the swamp cooler with the new pads in it before I put the cover on and shut it up for the winter. I had put a brand new swamp cooler on and found out that when I shrunk wrapped it, it only lasted like 3 years. What I think was happening was warm air from the house would come up, condensate inside because there was no air movement through it, and then it rusted everything out, and then my pump would also rust out, and I would have to buy a new pump almost every year. So those are things you learn as you go along, especially when you're young and just figuring things out. So I started doing that. I quit shrink wrapping. I just put the cover on, and now I put a duct cover in on the inside of the house so that condensate doesn't build up inside. So right now I just have a little strainer. You can get these at Sam's Club, or not Sam's Club, but Lowe's or Home Depot or Ace or wherever you get your hardware stuff. This just helps keep from sucking up bigger things, leaves or like calcium scale, that sort of thing. It doesn't have to be perfect or fancy. I just like to put a little bit of something on there. Now, if you watch other videos or if you get a new evaporative cooler, you may find that some pumps, like this one, has this second little plug here. This is for a purge pump. In our area, we actually have quite a bit of calcium in our water. And so if you don't purge your pump and keep some of this water out, then it condenses. It flows back down the mats, goes back into the tray, and every time it does that, it collects more and more mineral, and it plugs up your cooling pads, and so you have to change them more often. Sometimes I have to change my pads again midway through. Sometimes not. It just depends on a couple of things, whether I purge or whether or not I come up here and change the pads or not. So last year I didn't have to purge. I did have a calcium eliminator on my water line, and about midway through the year I would be sitting in the afternoon watching TV or something, and the house would start getting hot, and I'd come up here and I'd be out of water, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. After some research, I found that what was happening was my calcium filter down inside on the main water line had plugged with the calcium, which is why I wasn't getting calcified pads. And then I would run out of water and I'd lose my cooling. But the bad thing about that is you'll burn your pump up. These pumps can't run without water in them. So you have to be careful either way. You either have to check it often, or if for some reason your swamp cooler stops cooling, you need to get up and check it right away. So I don't have the water pump turned on right now, and we'll leave that for a little bit later, but I do have it above the impeller so we can check. Here I have, this is my little purge line, and I just put it just like this. Some of them you can get a little T with a valve, with an adjustable valve here. I thought this was easier because every time, there's not always a pump available with a purge on it. So I put a little purge T on the return that goes up, and I let a little go down the overflow. It's up to you. you can always come up here, just remove your plug, drain it out a couple times during the summertime, and eliminate the. You also don't want it always running. This used to run down by my bedroom window and drip, drip, drip down the gutter. And when I was working night shifts, it made it really hard to sleep. So back then I didn't do that. I don't work nights anymore, so I can take a better look at what I'm doing. Okay, so right now I'm just above the overflow. If I let that water go much more, it's going to go right over, and then it's going to run down my gutter. So all you have to do on these is just give it just a little bend, and you can see when this water goes down just a little bit, it should start right back up. And I think we can demonstrate that real quick. We'll just let a little bit of water out. The other day, it was 70 degrees and sunny, and now it's about to snow again. You can see now it's starting to drip. Now it's starting to come out a little quicker. And this is basically what happens once you turn on your pump and you start your spider distribution here for all your pads, the water evaporates as you cool, and it just needs to replace it. So I'll just put that back in. I just wanted to show you kind of how it worked. And you can see now that I'm about an inch from the overflow, and this will fill back up pretty quickly. So if it got lower, it's going to come out harder. As it lifts up, it'll shut off. Just a real quick note on your pump. Once you've got it set up, you can get it plugged in. In my case, I still have it turned off at the breaker. I turn the breaker off every year in the fall. That way, if somebody in the house, one of the kids or the wife or somebody decides that it's too cool, they don't turn the fan on, and it's covered up here. It can't suck any air, and then it turns your pump on. And you come in the springtime, next thing you know, your pump's burned up, your belt's burned up. So I just do that for safety's sake. This is the motor. It's a special 5-prong, so it can only fit into this special receptacle up here. And you'll plug it in. I'm going to unplug this again because I still have work to do with changing the belt. As you can see in the hyperlapse, these are rusted on, so I need to get a power tool, and these may break, so I might have to fiddle around longer than I need to on the video. On this other side, on this bolt, this slide is out of room, so I'm going to have to get rid of this bolt to allow myself to move this whole assembly forward to fit on the new belt. That being said, I also may have another little bit larger belt that might fit, but I don't know. I don't want to spend a whole bunch of time with you watching me on camera trying to figure that out. So I'm going to throw on 2 of these, or actually 3 of these pads, and then I'm going to go work on the belt, and I think that is about it. I may come back up here and show you once it's running, so you can see everything in action, but I'm not sure how long it's going to take me to get everything with the belt lined up. Plus our weather is getting kind of cruddy. It's getting cold and windy, so I might put that off until tomorrow. All right, thanks everybody. See you. All right, everybody. Yesterday we started putting together the swamp cooler and ran into some snags with the motor mount and the belt size. So I had a 66-inch belt for this, and it was way too small, and I didn't have any more room to slide forward the motor. I put some WD-40 on here just to see if we can break the rust and stuff free, and I'll see if I can move that. I have a feeling, I brought the grinder up today, that I'm gonna have to cut these off to move them. In the meantime, down in my shed, I found that I had a 69-inch belt, and it's also still just a little too small. The problem is that on the other side of my sliding motor mount is that I don't have any extra room to move it forward. So if I'm going to make one of these belts that I've been unable to locate a 70-inch V belt, which this really needs. So I'm going to have to make some adjustments. So I'm going to switch over to the hyperlapse, so you don't have to watch me forever doing this. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I'm going to be grinding or removing these bolts and trying to make some adjustments so that I can get this 69-inch belt to work. All right, so all the hassles aside, I think 4 or 5 years ago when I installed this new evaporative cooler, it came without a motor or the mount, and I used the motor mount from the old unit, and it didn't fit quite right. And I vaguely remember now getting a different size belt to make it all work, and for whatever reason I can't find that belt anymore, and I couldn't remember what size it was. So I just went ahead and took the grinder, cut the bolts off, moved it, re-drilled some holes for new bolts, and made it work. And so now I know that I have a 69-inch V-belt, and I have like 3 of them in my shed. We're about 60 miles from any kind of hardware store of any kind, so I have to keep spare parts and extra stuff around the house, otherwise I spend half my day driving around. So that's a little inconvenient, but I don't know how long it took me, maybe 40 minutes or something. So now we've got some, just a little bit of play on the belt. I have the unit turned on. I put the breaker on. The fan and the pump are unplugged up here in the roof unit itself. So I'm going to plug those in now. We'll go over everything real quick, and then that should be it. Okay, so you can see the water spider distribution, and that water just trickles down the pads, and then once the fan starts up, it draws air in on these 4 sides and forces it down through the downdraft into the house. The fan is on a timer, so usually the pump has to run for about 10 or 15 minutes before before it'll turn on. There's not much to see in that. So I'm going to go ahead and call this a wrap. If you've got any questions or comments, feel free to send me a message or leave a comment down below. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. As soon as